Hello, welcome to another Rolling to Win Live. Tonight we are with Donnie Landon, who is the founder of Vision of Life. And this is a nonprofit with a mission to empower incarcerated fathers and help support their children and families at home. And I met Donnie on Facebook, and he owns his own trucking company. He's also one of the directors at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is just far out to me that we get to speak to a guy who's got so many credentials. Well, without further ado, here he is. Hey, Donnie.
Hey, how you doing, John? How's everything going?
Oh yeah, all good over here. So, man, like you were doing some really powerful work out here.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
I'm quite inspired by all the stuff that you have going on. So, first thing, let's talk about this vision of life. How did you come to? How did you figure on starting this thing up?
So Vision Life is a result of my upbringing, being the child of an incarcerated father, um, presented challenges. Also, majority of my family members were incarcerated, and a lot of them got were incarcerated in around the '90s, and some of them are still in, and some are coming home. So because I took a different path once I found myself. When they come home, I'm kind of like the reentry program, so to say. Like
Mhm.
they come to me for advice. I mean, they call me in while they're incarcerated. So now I'm the youngest, but I'm kind of like the oldest because I've been out here and I've been actually putting in the work and changing
Mhm.
my life around. So, and I just want to make a better way for when people come home that they have support structure. Because I mean,
Mhm.
just by having an incarcerated father, I know what it's like seeing a person go in and out of facilities and how that affects the child. So kind of just trying to stop that trajectory and just trying to help out and do what I can in the world.
Right on. That's awesome. That's awesome. You talk about a lot of the people that you were growing up with ended up behind bars. Like, what was the path that you took to avoid that?
So I tried to, so the path I took. So I took a slow path because it wasn't that easy for me either. Because when my father was incarcerated, I kind of spiraled out of control, um, and I did some things that I know I probably shouldn't have. What changed my trajectory? It wasn't kind of a why. It was more so a who. When I was 19, I caught an assault and battery charge on a police officer,
Mm.
and it kind of went south real fast. So my moment of clarity and when I really thought about change was when I went to court. So my mother, although my rest of my whole entire family were like convicted felons, my mother was the only consistent thing in my life that was good.
Mm.
She never drank or smoked. She kept me tried to keep me in church. I even played the drums for the church. But as I got older, the street started to pull at me and pull at me. So I went to court, and when they brought me out because of the crime, I was shackled from hands, and my feet were shackled. And when I looked up, I saw my who. I looked at my mother; she was crying, and I'll never forget the hurt that I seen in her face. It was something that I remember so often. My father going in and out of jail, and
Mhm.
it broke me. It gave me a feeling like how could I be so selfish for someone who gave her all, working double shifts in the warehouse trying to raise me, and I'm just being selfish and not really thinking about the people that love me the most that I'm hurting. So it was
Mhm.
more I had to look inside, like what am I doing? Like I'm looking at my mother and I'm like, it angered me to see her like that when my father was putting her through that. So like I'm falling down the
Mhm.
same path of my father, and so I made a vow that day that I wouldn't be that person. So time went on. I did have a couple of months in jail because another story was the police officer. Actually, when he came in, he surprised me. So when the judge asked him what did he have to say, he said, "Donnie, I used to watch him playing football, and he was actually a pretty good player and probably could have did something with himself if he had the right guidance." So that just showed me that people wasn't out to get me. It was actually people that's around you that's actually rooting for you and you don't even know it.
Mm.
So I decided I was going to go to the military. It was like the best way out at this moment back in the 90s. So
Right.
I went to the Air Force. I tried to aim high. They said, no, can't go. You got a record. So I went to the Marine Corps, the few, the proud. They said you have to wait a year before boot camp. I was like,
Okay.
I don't have a year, so I'm trying to leave like now.
Right.
When I was going inside of the recruiting offices, I was asking, when can I leave? I wasn't even asking, like, what's the process? Like, when can I leave? So I went to the Navy, and they was like, you can be gone in 6 months.
Okay.
So I went to the Navy, and it was the best decision that I've ever made in my life. So that's how it kind of started.
Gotcha. That's awesome. That wasn't a deferment program or anything. You did that on your own, right?
Yes, I did that on my own.
Okay.
It didn't defer any time or anything. It was just a conscious decision to make to get away.
Gotcha. Did you ever watch that Pawn Stars show?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that the old man of that show, like, he's from Danville, Virginia, which is about 30 miles from where I'm at. Anyways, he got in trouble as a kid, and that was what they told him to do. Well, I say as a kid, 18, 19 years old. And that was the way that he got out of trouble, was to join the Navy, sure enough. So I guess that's what happened. That's just wild to me that I wish they'd do that for kids nowadays, man, because now it seems like they just lock them up and they don't learn nothing from it and stuff like that. A lot of them, like my son, he was on drugs and got locked up a couple of times. They were good to him though. They gave him some probation time, and eventually he did it. I mean, he like violated probation and all that stuff, but he finally cleaned up. He's kind of looking for what to do. He was trying to get into the Marines and all that as well. So Donnie, you were in the Navy for what? Like 5-6 years? Did a term? Is that right?
97 and 6 years.
6 years? Okay.
Yeah, I did 6 years, 4 years on the ship, and then I did 2 years at on land.
Okay. What was your rate?
I was SK, storekeeper, so like logistics.
Okay. Gotcha. How did that transition into civilian life for you?
So the transition, when I got out, so after I left my ship, I got stationed at NSA on Fort Meade. Mm-hmm. So that was a blessing in disguise, because I was able to get a top secret clearance. So I got the top secret clearance, and once I got out in 2003, I went to work for the Defense Intelligence Agency. Mm-hmm. So while working for the Defense Intelligence Agency, I came on as a logistics specialist.
Okay.
So it transitions my Navy career over to the government at the time, but I was brought on as a contractor originally. Mm-hmm. Then when OD&I stood up, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, I was in the DIA building. They were coexisting there. So they had a job opening for a government position. So I applied for it. I got hired. And the rest is kind of history. So I started as a logistics specialist. I moved my way up. My previous job before this job, I was a chief of staff for the president's daily brief.
Oh, wow.
I was providing direct support for the president, which was pretty much a highlight. So
that's incredible.
So at that point,
which president was that? Is that the current administration?
No, this was under Obama.
Okay, awesome.
This was a while back.
Right. So you've been a civil servant for quite a while now, huh?
Since 2006. I came in 2006. I just happened to accelerate really fast. I made GS 15 in like 9 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
incredible. So how did that afford you some time to start up the vision of life, and where are you at with that, like, currently? So
once as I was working my way up, it was kind of hard because I was trying to, make a living. Currently I have a wife, 5 kids. So, and I've always been raising kids. And so one of the things I often have prayed for is, like, I want to be this guy, the successful guy, this guy that does this and that. And oftentimes think to myself, like, I'm supposed to be further off than I am now, even though I know I'm doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear a voice that say, "What is your main priority? And what is your passion?" And my answer often to myself is, I don't want my kids to be like my kids, like I was.
Mm-hmm.
So that was basically God's affirmation saying, well, once you're done and you're at the point in your life where you feel like you've achieved your passion, which you all your life you've said, I'm not going to raise my kids this way. So now it's time for me to kind of take it to the next level. So I've had this nonprofit for probably 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
At one point, I was doing a lot more because I was going in with the Catholic charities and the prison ministries and going behind the bars, and mentoring people behind the bars.
Mm-hmm.
But after COVID hit, I had to like restructure. And originally, I was just doing like anybody, So I started to shape what I really wanted to do, so I can kind of feel more passionate. So I started to focus on incarcerated fathers, because I know what it's like to have a father incarcerated, and
Sure.
and I know how, because me and my father did speak while he was in prison quite often.
Okay, that's good. Mm-hmm.
And he was actually a better father in prison than he was at home. So
Wow.
it's kind of weird, but he was.
I kind of heard this thing one time that if you don't serve the Lord where you are, then He'll put you where you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I kind of just started tailoring it, because I feel like I was just, at the moment, I was just trying to just have impact. So I was all over the place. I was like, "Oh, kids, I got you. I got you. Whoever will help." I was just
Right.
call me, and I wasn't focused, So I was all over the place. But now I'm kind of streamlining it, and now I actually have a program, a Tyro Dash program, which is is evidence based, and right now it's in like 20 prisons in Ohio. It's in colleges. So that's kind of the baseline for my program now, and I'm more passionate about it and more structured.
Yeah. From the men that you're helping nowadays, what's some of the struggles that you see?
So some of the struggles is like going through the cycle of acceptance and like accepting where they're at and that they can move on. So a lot of the men that I deal with and have been locked up, they're dealing with the grief of like not being there for their kids, or just feel like they're like worthless. Their life is not, is over with. Just trying to give them that sense of new hope. That you can rebuild. You rebuild yourself. You rebuild yourself. But first, you got to recognize what's going on. You got to recognize what's going on, and then you get to the process where the stages where you get to rebuilding. And then once you rebuild yourself, you can reinvest. You start investing in yourself, and then you start investing in your kids. And then you start becoming a whole new person, but it starts with them and getting through to some people to the point where they accept their responsibility. Because a lot of people that's incarcerated, or a lot of people in general, is everybody else's fault.
Somebody else's fault.
It's always somebody else's fault. Yeah, I was in a robbery, man. My man, he got me. He set me up. Why was you in the robbery? Why did you even? You shouldn't even been there. So
yeah,
let's rewind that tape a little bit to the point where you got in the car. So the decisions, let's get them to understand the decisions you made is the reason why you're here today. But the decisions you make from here on out can change that trajectory.
Yeah, wow, that's true. That personal responsibility is the beginning of building a foundation for oneself. As long as it's everybody else's problem and you have a victim mentality, then really you'll never be on stable enough footing to have anything.
Absolutely. So just trying to get that victor mentality in them.
Yeah, right. That's good. Now, what are some changes that you'd like to see? And I'll tell you something that I've thought about myself is, let's say a guy's got 10 years or something. They put him to work in prison, doing some kind of job, but then his children don't get to see anything at home. So what would be some stuff that you think would be some good prison reforms so that the man could actually take care of the family?
One of the things part of the program the Tyro Dad program is like you have weekly assignments, so it's a 10-week program. And if the parent is not in touch with their child, you're required to write a letter every week of the program to your child.
Okay.
One of the things I would like to see better.
So you start with like contact.
Yeah,
like
start with contact.
Maybe they hadn't had any contact with their children. Okay, I got you.
Yes. So start with contact because you don't want to you got to ease your way in if you've been gone for a while. People are mad at you. You know, you can't just pop up and be like, "Oh, I've changed." So it's small steps, just the small steps. And I also think there should be more like video conferences in facilities. Because if you can go from the video, because you can go from the telephone, and then once you start building your relationships, they may not want to see you, but then they're like, "Oh, you know, I'd like to see." They might not be ready quite yet to come to the facility.
Okay. Yeah.
And now you can kind of, you know, you can do a video call. You know, get a video call. You can see each other, see the smiles on each other's face. You know, build that rapport via video. And then as it goes along, and then maybe you can get to the actual in-person visit. But another thing that is kind of missing is the transportation. So if there's a way to bridge the gap from I want to see my dad, or because a lot of people are in, you know, places, a lot of people in prison and families are in poverty. They may not have a car. So that is something that I kind of wanted to add to my program once it's fully developed and, you know, I have the funding and all that, like maybe have like a shuttle. Right. Like even if I start locally, like here in Maryland, like we have Jessup or Hagerstown, have a shuttle that may go out there every other week or every Saturday or every once a month. Just something that someone can say, I can, if I have the ability to go see my nephew.
I mean, it would benefit society quite a bit if, you know, first the fathers thought about being fathers, but then secondly, they're able to make amends like that. And then if there's programs like yours in place, that's going to cement some good structure in these young people's lives who are missing out on having a father, isn't it?
No, absolutely. One thing I've realized just by talking to people, a lot of people act out because of the fact that they can't see their child, or they're, you know, if I was a father, as much as I love my kids and I can't talk to my kids don't love me, I'm probably going to raise hell too in there. You know, why not? You know, like what else is there? What do you got? You know, so I'm gonna make everybody else's life miserable. You know, but if they said if a time came where they said, if you keep your points down, we'll allow you to see your son once a month. It change the perspective. You know, it's just mentality. Like it's a give and take. You can't just take from prisoners all the time and think they're gonna act right.
Right. Well, right now it's not set up like a reform system necessarily. It's set up as a penal system.
Absolutely.
They want to punish people instead of get them better. And some people are in there for, you know, you do some stupid stuff when you're out on drugs or something. And, you know, now you got this 25-year sentence hanging over your head because you messed up.
Yep.
And in 25 years, your children grow up and become men and women all on their own. And it's sad to think about. You know, I couldn't imagine being a father that's in prison. Although like back in my early 20s, I did like child support time, which doesn't make sense. And I've kind of thought about like, there's a whole lot of stuff like that when it comes to that, like the system is set up sort of against men in favor of women because, you know, women have been the sufferers of having to be the single mother, the single parent, having to raise a child. But just to kind of look at it, if you could get some kind of law in place, what would be a good law that you'd like to see that would be like a change in the system?
If I could get a law in place, right now, it would probably be the mandatory, like they revisit the mandatory sentencing. Because it seems like a lot of crimes don't warrant the sentencing. Like you could, case in example, a drug dealer and a murderer, a drug dealer might get more time. Like, which doesn't really make sense to me. Like if you took a life intentionally and someone who may have been in a bad situation. Not saying I'm all for drug dealing, but
Sure, right.
Somebody who was in a bad situation, they got to feed their family. They just, took a chance and got caught with like a quarter of cocaine, which is minimum. I've seen people get caught with a quarter cocaine and get 25, 30 years.
Yeah, right.
But I've also seen someone catch a murder and get 5 years. My cousin was murdered about 4 years now. He was brutally murdered. I mean, he was in D.C. They set him up. Somebody was in the closet. He went to see a girl. They kidnapped him, took him to an abandoned building, stripped him butt naked, poured acid on him, and dumped him in a trash can.
Oh my gosh!
The guy got 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, and that's clearly premeditated and everything.
That's horrible. But then you'll see a guy who's trying to support their family, and he gets 30 years for selling drugs. Not saying it's neither one is right, but if I had a choice, I'd rather take a reformed drug dealer than a reformed killer.
Right. Well,
especially
I kind of think, I mean, I'm with you on that. I was just kind of, I had to think for a minute because, I honestly believe that any man that wants to be rehabilitated can be.
I agree.
And that, you have a lot of people who, again, they're still victims. And they won't take responsibility. Like, I killed this person because of this. Like, it's their fault I killed them or whatever. And I guess murder is one of those worst case scenarios that we could talk about. But a man can really reform himself when he wants to. So that's wild, man, to think that somebody
to accept it though. So
yeah. I couldn't imagine. Imagine being the judge and you're like, okay, 7 years.
That's what I'm saying. Imagine being a family and you witnessing they're sitting there talking about what's going on and pour acid on them. You got stab holes in them.
Sure.
Stripping butt naked and he's in a dumpster.
Yeah, that's terrible. Now, did you sit through that particular trial?
Well, I couldn't sit through they had to close for the first one. They wouldn't let too many. Okay. They only let a certain amount in, so his mother and them went in.
Right.
It was a hard one.
It didn't go the right way anyway. Sounds like.
No, it didn't go the right way. It didn't go the right way. It didn't go the right way at all. And then one of the worst parts is the guy who committed it was like a habitual offender, so it's not his first charge.
Oh wow, no kidding.
So it's wow. That was a tough one. But then I had a cousin who got 30 years for drugs. So 30 years for drugs, and then this guy just killed my cousin for 7. So.
Yeah. Been better off just killing people.
That's the way the system. It just don't have no rhyme or reason to.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah, you would hope for different justice than that, because you think justice is blind, but it really isn't. Justice is if the judge had lunch and isn't hungry, maybe you get a lesser sentence because I think some studies. Some studies have been shown that sure enough, you want to be the guy right after lunch or first thing in the morning. You don't want to be in between when the judge is hungry. Something like that, because they hand out much harsher sentences. It's a pretty wild study. So your mother kept you in church and everything. Is your program founded on Christian principle?
So my program is founded on principles of good, regardless of religion.
Okay.
So I am a God-fearing, so my program is around the principles of God. But I try to steer away from directing people a certain direction. Because I don't want to get to a point where I'm turning someone off. So although I may quote scriptures that any man I think should abide by, is not saying you have to adhere to that actual religion. But if the religion or the scriptures catch you, then we have it.
Right.
But if not, it's just basically really more so trying to instill in them good. Yeah. And some people that have never read the Bible, it may change. It could possibly change their life. It's a lot of things to do. Especially start reading and you start reading all these principles and and stuff that you never even read before, never knew about. It could definitely change
Right.
your life.
Right. Yeah. Jesus said that his people know him. And,
Yep.
and I've always taken that as like whether you knew Jesus or not, as you started reading the scripture, that eventually uh,
Mhm.
Jesus is going to get you if you're one of his, right?
Yeah, it's gonna grab a hold to you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
through all this, like, so you're working for the government, you got all that, and you still managed to start a trucking company, right? Um,
Yes.
mhm.
So the
So
trucking
so
company.
yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so trucking company. So how I came up with a trucking company. My brother, he been home probably 4 or 5 years now. He was locked
Hmm.
up 16 years of my life.
Oh wow.
So my brother, when he was in Petersburg and he was at the Low camp.
Hmm.
And at Petersburg Low camp, they had a CDL program.
Okay.
So he had got his CDL and he was just so excited about it. So when he came home, since he's been home, he's been driving. He's been all the way out of trouble. He's bought a house. He's gotten married. He has a car. Has a stable life. So
Right.
my thought was, hey man, if I can help somebody by starting a trucking company, I'll start a trucking company because that's the
Sure.
only industry, not only, but it's one of the only industries where
One
your
of them.
record
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Right.
You can
Right.
we can be whatever. As long as you got a CDL, no one knows your history or your
Right.
past.
So with your record with logistics, how did that integrate into this endeavor?
So if the integration was more so knowing how to connect with the providers,
Hmm.
like for instance, if I have a flatbed, to know like to connect with steel people that carry steel or wood, and just knowing the dynamics of how transportation works in general.
Hmm.
So that's like the major part I play because I did a lot of that in the military. So kind of just when it just felt natural. It was something
Okay.
it was just like aha moment, like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah. So how does like if you have your own truck or
Mhm.
whatever, and you've started your business, how do you find the business? Like, how do you find the hauls? I guess you would say.
So once you get your truck in like your CDL and you get your truck, the easiest
Hmm.
thing is just to hire a dispatcher. So
Hmm.
I just at first I took the class to dispatch myself. So at first I was dispatching load boards out there like that, trucking, truck
Hmm.
stop and so forth. And you just go on the loads, you look, you put in your city, and then you just see what's coming through that area. And then you just call the
Okay.
broker and you just say, hey, I see you got a load going to Texas.
Hmm.
You say 1,500, can I get it for 2,500? And you just negotiate and go back and forth. But it
Okay.
became a lot trying to do that and then manage the loads, make sure you get paid. And so I just hired a dispatcher. So the
Okay.
first 2 years I did it myself, but now I got a dispatcher, which is good because now if the dispatcher is not performing well, I know he's not performing well because I know I know what he should be doing.
Because you know the job. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the job. So
So you say you called a broker. Like who's a broker exactly?
let's say broker. Let's say for me, JBL or
Oh, okay. Like the
like
big name,
JBL, the big names like Total Quality Logistics. Um,
Averett Express, maybe some
yeah,
of
Avid
them.
Express, one of them, because they'll
Hmm.
have they may have more loads than they can handle, but it's
Okay.
all written. Like it'll once you log in, it'll just you put in like for instance, I'll say Washington D.C.
Hmm.
It'll give you all the loads with the rates, and the thing is knowing your
Okay.
mile, and you got to know your number because you got to know your rate per mile.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't be running yourself in the
No,
hole.
you can't run yourself in the hose. You gotta know your rate per mile. I learned that the hard way. You get
Yeah. Okay.
150 a mile. I was like, oh, hell, I need these $3-4 a mile. I won't move a truck.
Okay. Gotcha. Have you found yourself in some of them hard spots when it comes to a haul? Like you said, you don't want to do that. Like, what's the story that you actually did that?
Um, be honest, I won't move my truck if
Okay.
it's not worth the money because I don't drive. So I
Sure.
have
Sure.
drivers, so it's not worth me to move my truck and have to pay
Mm.
someone else, pay the dispatcher
Mm.
repairs and maintenance, and try to make a little profit. Because I really don't really
Sure.
make a profit. It's more for the good. So most time I just tell the broker I can't do it. I'm not gonna move my truck for $1.50. It just don't make sense.
Okay. Yeah. I understand that. Yeah. Don't blame you.
No.
It like I don't even know what the rate is on taxes now. I think the last time I checked, it was like for just a regular person that drove their car for business was 55 cents a mile is what they would give you on your taxes. So, but I think that the operating cost of a vehicle is at least $1.25 a mile now, something like that. It's like it's really skyrocketed over the past few years.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, that's wild. And so you through all this too, man, like you became a director over here at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So what do you do in that particular role?
So it kind of ties in. So in the previous role, when I was at Director of National Intelligence, I was over all of the facilities at one point.
Okay.
In the intelligence community. So I was like the head person flying around, making sure everybody was straight and overseeing project managers who oversee projects. So right now I'm responsible for all the 52 facilities in the EEOC. So we kind of do I'm in the office where they do the budget, because EEOC is set up as a division of 90% of the people are lawyers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not like a regular, run-of-the-mill office where you got like regular employees. Like 90% of people are lawyers because they're dealing with EEOC matters for the entire United States. So it's not just for the government; it's for everybody.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's primarily due to 52 facilities throughout the United States, and just do whatever the leadership need me to do financially, budget-wise, and just oversee the team, which is it's pretty good for me. Coming from somewhere where you have to have a top secret clearance and not being able to take your phone to work for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. When I first walked in the building, my phone rang and I thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh,
gotcha.
So it definitely took some getting used to, but I love it.
Okay, right on. What was like one of the key moments in your career as a civil servant?
One of the key moments, I want to say when I first got hired. Yes. So when I first got hired, one of the key moments, even though like the chief of staff was one of the highlighted moments of my career by far, one of the key moments when I first got hired. So I got hired in 2006, and the guy who hired me his name was Ben Stipes. He was a Caucasian male, but he put so much into me. Like he was the first person to actually like just believe in me and grow me. And so it was like, I mean, he passed away and I still have a picture of him in my wallet. He passed away years ago. And I still have that picture from him. So that was probably like one of the most monumental moments in my career. Someone who actually took an interest in me and pushed me to the next level. Put me in the places where I felt uncomfortable in front of leaders and and just by myself, like, you gonna take care of me. That was so that which polished me to the point where I can be the chief of staff for the president's daily brief. So without that experience, I don't think I wouldn't have been as successful.
Right. Wow. And you sort of show a similar thing to these men in prisons, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you
so
kind of
like giving
showing
back.
them that they can do it, right?
Yep. So it's like a life of, because people give and I just give back. So that's another thing. My mother, if Jesus had a sister, she'd be here. She is like, she doesn't like to receive anything. Like we just gave her an 80th birthday party. At first she was like, I don't want the party. Like, you give her something, she gonna give it. She gonna find a way to give it back to you.
Right.
It might be in a card. You like, this is the same fit I gave you last week. But she's just giving and she never stops giving. So like, we got to set up her tables for her party. I don't want no head table. I want to be in the middle with everybody else. So she's so humble that that's a part of me that my brother always say, I got my father ways with a mother heart. So which took me through life, because she's at the heart of gold.
Sure, sure. So what would you say to like somebody who's listening that may be going through something very similar, like their father's incarcerated or their father isn't in their life? What's some advice you give that young man?
So, if a young man whose father's incarcerated, thinking back, um, I would say believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've learned over the years. Like, you have you. Like, when nobody else is there, you have you. Your parents could die in a plane crash. Anything could happen, but at the end of the day, you got you. And because of how I've grown, another thing I would say would be get close to God.
Right.
The closer you are to God, the easier life gets. I grew up fighting it, but as soon as I released it, life just got so much easier on it. When you take the weight off yourself and give it over to God, like life just starts getting so easy. So that's what I would say. And don't blame your father, because sometimes a child would blame their father thinking that, but your father probably didn't grow up knowing either. My father didn't know
Right.
He didn't know what he was doing as a parent. So my father's still living. Actually, just called not too long ago. But and as he's gotten older, when I graduated from boot camp, and him and my mother came to visit, it was when he first got released. That was the first time I seen him since a child in person. So when he came to visit me in boot camp, he told me my grandmother said to protect that child because he's going to be something in life. And I was like, you wait now to tell me. Why you didn't tell me that before? I probably did things differently, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, because I did a lot of dumb things in my life trying to live up to what I thought, would be suffice to my father because of the type of guy he was. Like, my father, he wore suits every day. He drove nothing but Mercedes Benzes, Gator shoes. So he was the guy in the family that everybody wanted to be like. So everybody else wanted to be like, I did too. So
Right.
So that's like kind of one of the things that he told me. And then later on in life, probably not even too long ago, because now he is in rehab because he fell down. And I'm talking to him, and he see how I'm with my kids, and he say, one thing I respect about you is how much you love your kids, how much in your kids' life. Because if something's going on, my son got a basketball game, and it's either a basketball game or my friends, I'm choosing my son every time.
Yeah.
So, and he was like, he told me not too long ago, one thing I regret is not being there for you like you're there for your kids. So it kind of like, even though we had mended all that, it kind of like brought further closure. Like, okay, you did recognize that you wasn't there and you did this and that. So, so just not blame your father. Like, everybody has a life. Everybody make mistakes,
Right.
Forgive them for what they do and just move on.
Yeah, I try to tell one of my children is a new father, and the other one has got a couple of kids, and I have 4 children myself and 3 grandchildren, in fact. But I try to tell them, be the type of father that you needed that I wasn't. Even though like I did the best I could. I had my first kid. I was 17 years old, and then joined the service right after that because that was the way out, right? Can't afford to go to college now. I got a mouth to feed, so I did the best I could. I got into cable after I got out of the military, so I traveled up and down the coast and all over the place building cable systems, and my kids grew up on me, and I missed out on quite a bit because of it. And there was quite a bit of hurt feelings that we used to have. After I fell off the roof, which effectively retired that career of being away, I was able to slow down, and the one thing that I decided to focus on was being a father. And at the time, my middle son was on drugs, like I was telling you about, and I knew that he needed me so much. And it really resonated with me when you said your father didn't know what he was doing, etc. Because looking back, our parents did the best they could for us with what they knew. And as they got older, they learned stuff, and they tried to teach me. My dad tried to teach me as he got older, and I learned. I had a little brother who was 13 years younger than me, and he got a whole different dad than I got, and it taught me quite a bit about being a father. As I watched my dad grow into a good father as well. So um, that's what I try to do now. Try to live by that mantra of just being the best dad that I can be for my kids, and hopefully break some of these generational curses.
Absolutely.
Of drugs and alcohol and crime or whatever. Which my dad wasn't a criminal. I did a bunch of stupid stuff in my earlier life, because I thought you had to be man, to be a man you had to be tough and hard assed, right? But that's just not the truth. Um, that's part of it, but I think that you have to be able to manage that part of yourself to be a good man. Like you should be able to get out here and defend your family, but you shouldn't be out here starting fights.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah, that
when you're young and angry, when you're young and you're angry, it's just like you say, it's a different era now. Like I tell people, like the kids growing up now, the era we grew up in, it was kind of like rough. It was like it was a macho image. Now the macho image is totally gone. Right. So that's out the window. You definitely don't have to be macho nowadays.
Right,
but, growing up, you want to like prove yourself, so people be like, "Oh, he don't play. He don't do this. He's a straight up man." So, so I found myself in similar situations with guns and violence and all that. But it was looking back, it was the dumbest thing I ever did.
Yeah, right. It was the tough guy image that you had that you thought you should be.
Right, because you want everybody to look at you a certain type of way.
Right. Respect. I got to get my respect. I got to get my respect. And really, it turns out that like you get the most respect by being a genuine, helpful, courteous, kind human being. Gets you more respect.
Way more
fear
respect
will ever get you.
Fear gets you in trouble.
Right.
There's always somebody who wants your respect.
That's right. So, oh man. So here's one of these young boys right here. I say young boys. He's 21. He says, just kids raising kids. And as a 21-year-old, I'm really learning that watching my friends raise kids, I remember my mom's friends not interacting with me. So I make sure I interact with my best friend's kids as my little nephews. He also helps. He's got a younger brother. I know this guy. We've had some conversations, and he's in a situation where it seems like he grew up fatherless and ended up being sort of the big brother to everybody. He's a good kid, I say. I mean, he's trying to do his thing. He broke his back almost a year ago now. I think it's 10 months, 11 months, but almost a year ago, and ended up in a wheelchair like some of us other knuckleheads who were out doing stupid shit and got hurt. Like me, I fell off a roof, but I could have been wearing safety equipment. And I wasn't wearing safety equipment. So it's my fault, or I could have, I think I laid around for 18 months just kind of thinking, well, my life is over. I don't have anything anymore. And eventually just kind of realized that, I got to take care of myself or else ain't nobody else going to do it. So I had to get up and do it,
The victim mentality.
Right. Woe is me. My life is over, And I feel like a lot of people, if they get in some trouble, that's really what sets them back to my life is over, right? Just because you got in trouble doesn't mean your life's over. I mean, hell, you might have 10 or 15 years, but that 10 or 15 years will go by quicker than you know it. So you better get ready for coming back. Get your head together and learn. You hope that. And, I think in America, we turn out a lot of criminals from our prison system too. And there's not a lot of success stories is what I'm saying,
No, that's true.
And it's good when you can find the success stories. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing, trying to make some success stories, men who get reformed, become good fathers. So, yeah.
So a lot of times, some people will find them, if I can just give them a bit of faith, and once they start buying into the faith perspective, then I just throw in my pitch. Like, once they start believing, and then I usually throw in like, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you," and I start giving them those type of scriptures, and then I'd be like, well, what if you would have stayed on the streets? You might have died. You never know what God has for you, so don't question God.
Right.
So because that's something I had to realize in my life. Like sometimes I'd be like, why not now? And I just learned to just leave it alone. It's hard to do, like worrying and stressing over stuff, and it's just natural.
Sure.
But the more I can get people to think of God's plan, not their plan, the less stressful. Like I've seen people be, especially those new to it, and they're really on fire. Really on fire because it's all new to them. Like, man, God's plan, man. Come on, man. You look good. Man, he might have saved you from hey, man, you could have got killed out there,
Sure.
Now you're thankful to be in jail, So it's like
right.
So it just depends on how you spend it, But it's true.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Yeah, you think about God's plan, like your plan, you wanted patience, but you wanted it instantly given to you, not to be put in the situation where you had to be patient. Or you wanted to maybe like you prayed, take the anger away. Well, now you're in these situations where you're angry all the time. You're the one who has to take it away.
You has the one that has to take it away.
Yeah.
I tell people, like, in order to come out as a diamond, you got to go through pressure. A diamond goes through the most pressure of any stone or Jew. So in order to be God's precious diamond, He's going to put you through some pressure.
Right.
Man, if you come out on the end, then you're gonna come out shining like a diamond.
That's right. I think that's a good spot to wrap, man. It doesn't get any more clear than that, does it? Like, here's the mission, boys. You better get out here and listen to God, because God's going to put you on that path, the path that you're supposed to be on. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really appreciate talking with you. I'll wrap with you, but I'm gonna wrap with the world first, and then I'll talk to you another minute, and we'll pop off. All right. So stand by. All right, guys. So this evening we spoke with Donnie Landon, and if you want to get in touch with him, you can go to his website. It's DonnieLandon.com. It's also in the description of the video here. He is the founder of Vision of Life, which is the nonprofit mission to empower incarcerated fathers and help support their children and families. So you can probably help him on his mission by going to his website and checking things out. Meanwhile, like, subscribe. We're going to keep this thing rocking. We'll have some new guests coming up on Friday. We have the Badass Mentor, and I'll tell you what the name is later on. So be paying attention for the poster to come out. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you. Keep rolling to win.